Hello, welcome to episode 9 of First Person Podcast, a monthly podcast put on by the editors of First Person Scholar. I'm Emma Vossen, editor-in-chief of First Person Scholar, and this month we have a very late podcast, which is a bit thematic, seeing as what we're going to be talking about is Zelda as a series, and we're going to talk a lot about the newest iteration of Zelda, which is currently very late. We have 4 editors with us today who are going to talk about it. That includes Alex, Phil, Chris, and myself. And in this episode, we cover a bunch of things, including the controversies surrounding Breath of the Wild, discussions of Zelda and gender. We talk about the evolution of the series, and mostly we just fan out, talking about what our favorite Zelda game is, what our least favorite Zelda game is, that sort of thing. I hope you enjoy.
So today we're going to do something a little self-indulgent on my part because I'm leaving soon. I'm not going to be EIC anymore, and I'm not going to be running the podcast anymore. One of my requests was that before I was finished, we did a all Zelda podcast where we talked about nothing but Zelda because I'm pretty Zelda obsessed. So we got together with some of our editors who also really like Zelda. And maybe this is a little less academic than what we normally do, but you still got four people with PhDs in video games talking about video games. So hopefully we still get some really smart stuff out of it. So before we get going, I'm just going to get everyone to introduce themselves. So I'm Emma Vossen, and you follow me on Twitter at Emma H. Vossen.
I'm Alexandra Orlando. You can follow me at Alex G. Orlando, just one at.
And I'm Phil Maletic. Just follow me at Phil Maletic on Twitter.
No middle initial for you.
No.
No, the middle initial's out of style. I'm Chris Lawrence. You can follow me on Twitter at Quips Lawrence.
Cool. So we're going to try something a little different today that we've never done in a podcast before, so I hope it works. We are going to start with a little bit of trivia. And what you guys can't see is that we have here a tiny little Tingle plushie who is either adorable or terrifying, depending on who at this table you ask. Mm-hmm. And whoever wins this trivia competition will get the Tingle, and I guess if they're terrified of him, they can give him away.
To me.
So I've got 10 questions, and I'm not going to do multiple choice. We're just going to I'll ask the questions, people can shout it out, and then we'll just try to keep track of points. I'll try to keep track of points in my notes.
It's going to be fucking anarchy.
Are you guys ready? I'm so excited. I would not want to be participating in this contest other than obviously wanting a Tingle plushie, but I already have one. So, okay. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Never.
And you can participate along at home. You can shout out the answers into the void. I won't judge you.
In your car.
Yeah.
Screaming into the void, highly recommended.
Okay, question number 1. What real-life person is Zelda named after?
Zelda Fitzgerald.
That is correct. Ooh. 1 for Chris. Yeah. All right. Also, these are in kind of like a descending order from easiest to hardest. So, what is the name of Tingle's game that did not get released in North America?
Freshly picked Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land.
Oh, man. You put the freshly picked in there. I didn't even have that on my answer. Oh, God.
Chris is the lore
Chris
guy.
Is, Chris is owning this. Okay. What is the name of the mask you get in Majora's Mask for listening to stories?
All Night Mask.
That is correct. All right.
I'm already about to give up.
Don't give up yet. Hold on in there. What famous character is Link's appearance modeled after? Chris doesn't know.
What do you mean by character?
Famous character. What famous literary character is Link's appearance modeled after? I feel like these are a bit English majory questions. Do you know? Alex knows.
Not me, though.
No.
Not the person that...
Our podcast producer.
Yeah.
I'd only be guessing.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't know the answer, just kind of think about the way he dresses.
Robin Hood.
Close.
I want to say Peter Pan.
It's Peter Pan. All right. How many timelines does the Zelda story break into?
3.
You all said that at the same time, I think.
I didn't say anything.
You didn't say
I
anything?
think I'll give it to Alex.
All right.
I think Alex was first.
Yeah.
The answer is always 3 in Zelda, if you're numbers.
The whole I guess I didn't finish the question. The whole question was, how many timelines does the Zelda story break into after Ocarina of Time? The answer is 3.
Oh.
You didn't even know. That's amazing. Okay. What is the name of the Zelda game to first feature a first-person and on-rail shooter experience?
Link's crossbow training.
Damn it. I had it in my mind. I was like, oh, like Zelda 2, but that was not in first person. But it's very much on rails.
Here's a hard one.
Oh, no.
Well, or maybe this isn't actually a hard one. Maybe this is a thing that's actually common knowledge, and I just never heard it before. What item can you use to defeat Ganon in Ocarina of Time other than your sword?
Bottle.
See, I guess, did you guys know that?
No.
I didn't know that.
No. How do you?
I didn't even believe it when I read it. I had to go watch YouTube videos of it.
Do you catch him?
So you can.
Oh yeah,
like,
off guard.
It's like the only other item that I guess you can swing, kind of like you swing your sword, and you just hit his shit back to him.
Oh.
Apparently, it's actually easier to defeat him with the bottle than with your sword.
You can also use the bug catching net the same way in A Link to the Past.
Oh, I thought you meant Ganon, like, proper. Like, pig guy. Because I was just like, oh, you could use, like...
There was a
number
flaw
thing.
in the question.
That's okay. That's okay. I didn't know that anyway, so I wouldn't have got it right.
This is actually weird considering what Chris just said. All right, we got 3 more. In what 2 games does Link catch bugs?
Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time.
Half of that was right.
How do you figure? Catches little spiders.
Okay, this is a flawed question too, because what I meant was
Also Majora's
bug
Mask.
catching as part of the, like it is in Twilight Princess.
Oh,
you know, with
like
a
Skyward
system.
Sword then?
Yeah, Skyward Sword
Okay.
is the other one. Yeah.
So,
So that was
they're
also
actually
a flawed
arachnids if
question.
they're spiders, I guess. So maybe that's
Yeah, because like now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I just said bugs. Like that could have been Skulltulas. It could have been the little bugs under the rocks. Could have been anything. That was a badly written question. I'm sorry to everyone at home who's hating me right now.
We'll bell curve it. It'll be fine.
All right, next question. In what 2 Zelda games does Link possess a harp?
Oracle of Seasons and Skyward Sword.
That's very, 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 very close.
Oracle of Ages
Yeah.
and Skyward Sword.
Yeah.
Damn.
Okay, and here's the hardest one. There is only one enemy who appears in every game. What enemy is it?
Octoroks.
Wow.
What, Doctor?
Octoroks.
Oh,
I thought that was the hardest one.
I would have said Dodongo, so I was like,
Okay, so it's funny because Chris was the one who was saying Tingle is terrifying, but Chris, you got the most answers. So do you want the Tingle plushie?
you earned it, so no hard feelings if you actually want to take
You
it.
should touch it.
What is that? Is that
That's,
necessary?
something.
I feel a little unnatural. This.
It was meant to be.
There you go. Enjoying your Tingle plushie.
I'm gonna prop him.
Yeah, this is the mascot of our podcast now. Okay, so that concludes our trivia segment. I hope you guys enjoyed it and it wasn't just boring. So now we're going to start out with the actual podcast, and I want to start with the most general, really generic question. It's not sort of the sort of questions I normally ask on our podcast, but like I said, this is self-indulgent. So what is your favorite Zelda game and why?
Do you want to go first?
No, you go
No,
first.
me? Okay, well, my favorite is Majora's Mask because, and maybe this will tie into the other question, but like Ocarina of Time was my first Zelda game, and so having those expectations set up very specifically from Ocarina of Time and then moving into Majora's Mask where like you're essentially like turning it all on its head thematically wise, mechanically, it's still the same, was kind of this first moment where I was just like, games have the ability to revisit the same sort of content and material in a sort of bizarre, alternate, dark way. And I thought that was really interesting and frightening, but it made it super compelling for me. So I always latched on to Majora's Mask because it was so different, but not in like a mechanical way where I think most people like to segregate the Zelda series, you know, like the 2D, the 3D, and this is when they changed this and that. But like, yeah, just thematically and like taking the same even models of the characters and then putting them in different situations. People would say that's lazy, but I really liked that and appreciated it.
I think as a kid that kind of creeped me out. It's like seeing the exact same character have like a different personality and like a whole different life and stuff. I was like,
yeah.
All right, Phil.
I wish you left me last because I can't decide.
Well, maybe
It's
Chris
like-
can go first and then you can think about it, or
No, like I've been kind of thinking about my answer, and I don't know. Like there's so many I have like very fond memories of, and then remember playing. I think I played like Majora's Mask first before I played Ocarina of Time.
Ooh, interesting.
Because I just never owned it, and then I was like the uncool kid that never owned Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
And then, but like I do have fond memories of playing both of those, and then enjoying them both. Because I was only one of my friends that really liked Majora's Mask,
Right.
and then because they hated the time constraint thing.
Yeah.
But I really liked that constraint and sort of this sort of, I don't know, even like, what is it? The very like existential, always starting over again.
Yeah.
And then and also that need to like rush towards the end, which created a new kind of tension to some game that could be something old. But also, I found in that time, like being restricted in that way is part of what I love about kind of Ocarina of Time when I first played it, was that it was a bit of the history and lore that you got to like explore around, and I really liked that about it. And then I'm just torn. At the same time, I really liked Link's Awakening, and it was just, I don't know, it's just really, I can't remember off the top of my head every single detail of it, but it's just,
It's
it was one
also
of those games
a
that-
darker one.
Yeah, it was more of a darker one, and I played the DX one for the GameCube Color, or Game Boy Color.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like I really liked like the darker tone to it, and like I just had it was a game that I played like late into the night, and it was also a game a very like he's no longer a friend stole it from me,
Oh.
and then I got it back, but he lied to my face that he stole it from me.
Oh, that's awful. When you stealing a video game when you're a kid and you don't have any resources, it's cruel. It's truly cruel. All right, Chris.
Yeah, my favorite Zelda game is Darksiders. No, okay. Seriously? Stole my thunder, Phil. Link's Awakening, far and away. I have a far less sophisticated answer for why it's my favorite game. It's the only one that made me cry.
Oh, interesting.
You want to talk existential crisis? Your win condition in Link's Awakening is you destroy the world. You make it stop existing. The only female protagonist in the series that Link explicitly falls in love with before Skyward Sword, she stops existing.
Yeah.
That's your win condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe 14 when I played it. Fucked me up.
That's true. Maybe that's why. No. Explains everything.
I mean, I think it's interesting because, like, I would also, like, Link's Awakening is also up there for me, but, like, I think it's interesting that we have, like, very similar tastes in Zelda games, because I don't think, because my favorite is Majora's Mask, and, you know, like, I assume it's up there for you too, obviously, and so it's weird that we seem to all have a similar taste, whereas, like, I don't feel like those are the two games that people list normally when they're talking about their favorite Zelda game at all.
No.
Yeah.
It's usually Ocarina of Time or A Link to the Past, but I think people say A Link to the Past because people have always said A Link to the Past is the best one, and so that's what the cool one to do. Like, it's always cool to cite the Super Nintendo version, because the Nintendo version's always like, oh, they started and then they're, you know, finding the genre and the series, and then the Super Nintendo is where, like, Super Nintendo games are where the series really starts to shine. I think the same thing with Metroid too, right? But as well, Super Metroid as well, not Metroid 2, which is never mind. So I think, and it's cool to say, oh, the retro one though was really good.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't go, maybe they consider N64 retro now, but like I think that's kind of the thing where people are just like saying what other people say, or like they read the top 10 list or whatever.
Right,
like,
yeah, but it's not actually, yeah. No, I think
everyone's a
that's
liar out there. You're all
But yeah,
liars.
I like when Phil said, "Well, I was one of my only friend who liked Majora's Mask best or whatever," and I had my brother, so he also liked Majora's Mask best. But yeah, that was the thing. Is it was funny like when I think chatting with you guys and stuff was the first time I met people who liked Majora's Mask more than Ocarina. Because for me, I love, like Phil was saying, I love the time constraint. That was a huge thing for me. But the main thing for me was the Bomber's Notebook thing. That for me, it just took what I love about video games and it just sort of wrapped it all up in a way that, it wasn't just a list of side quests. It wasn't just your quest log. Like it was sort of something more. And I loved sort of the feeling of being like, Majora's Mask is still to the day one of the only games where I can find myself doing really illogical things. Trying to say you're trying to complete like a certain quest where you help a certain person, but then you stop on the way to help this other person just because like you encountered them or like 'cause you feel bad for them or whatever. And there's actually no point in doing that. You're wasting your time helping them, but you're just like, oh, in this reality, like, or in this day, I just want these people to be happy or stuff like that. Or like I would beat the bosses multiple times just so I could, see everyone in that area happy or whatever. And I don't think really any other game has sort of recreated that.
Yeah,
Sort of
I think
thing.
the first thing that came to mind when you said that was when on the first night when the lady gets her satchel taken.
Yes.
I cannot stand by, even though I've already gotten the mask and like completed that quest. Whenever it's like, no, I still have to help this lady, even though I'm kind of pressed for time right now. I can't stand by and watch this jerk take this old lady's little pack. It's
or
just
like
horrible.
another one for me is like when the Goron's sleeping outside, when you don't help the Goron and then you go back the next day and he's sleeping outside instead of chilling in the inn and you're like, oh, I'm a terrible person. But in that one, I guess you could actually do nothing. Anyway, yeah, just these sort of things.
I think at a narrative level, Majora's Mask works really effectively as a sequel and response to Ocarina of Time, because Majora's Mask picks up from the child timeline. We talked about the split in trivia, right?
Yeah.
So you've got this 10-year-old kid who's lived an entire life, well, not an entire life, but an adventure as a quote-unquote adult, a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, whatever. He's saved Hyrule, he's done all this shit, and then he goes back. He gets sent back to a world where none of this ever happened. And ostensibly that's for the better on a macro scale, but on a micro scale, it's got to mess a kid up, right?
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense that he goes on this lonely quest after that, trying to find some meaning, some sense of self, and he ends up in Termina. And he's put into a situation where he is explicitly made to confront the erasure of his own existence over and over again until he gets to the point where then the player by extension is comfortable finding and accepting meaning in the moment rather than thinking exclusively of building towards the future.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's another one of the things that I really love about it is just this idea that it's the only Zelda game where it's like, no one's really bowing at your feet being like, you're the hero of time. And like, so you're not really saving the world. It's not like you don't have this royal quest. It's just literally your friend gets fucked up.
Who's not even really your friend.
Not even really your friend. Just like this acquaintance. Yeah. And it's fucking everything else up. And you just like, it's just these people, and you want to save them. It's not about saving the princess. It's about saving literally everyone.
Yeah, and it goes back to that micro idea that Chris was talking about in the sense that you spent your whole time in Ocarina of Time not really paying attention to people or what they were doing, and minus if you save the lady's cat or something like the dog in the town, and there's very small quests, but for the most part, you don't actually really get to know anybody, or you don't even feel like there's anybody in Hyrule. It just, and like, when you're an adult, there's really nobody in Hyrule.
Yeah, that relationship with Sheik is really like your only.
Yeah. And that's maybe a design choice. Like you didn't design enough characters to fill your like big sprawling world or whatever. But it's also this idea that you focus on like your development of the relationship of the sages, and that kind of each of the sage represents a different sort of relationship. But you also get to know them by not interacting with them. You go through the temples in which there's no one there, so it's all very symbolic and far removed, and so Majora's Mask is kind of the answer to that, where you're like, okay, now you can actually talk to people, they have names, you can help them out a little bit, and in that way you're sort of doing heroic stuff, but not in of Legend's tale.
Well, especially with like the longer quests, the couple mask quests and stuff like that, where you can't just like accidentally do it. You're not just like talking to someone and clicking a box. You're not just thinking about games, like WoW or even Dragon Age sometimes, where you're just handing quests in or whatever. Like, you can't do it on accident. Like, it has to be, it's a very purposeful thing, and you have to do it 4 or 5 times before you get it right. And yeah, it just kind of completely changes the dynamic, I think.
Now, here's a question for you guys. Do you think that the Ocarina of Time Link's story, how do you feel about like the Twilight Princess mention of that particular hero of time? Do you think that it is wrapped up nicely, or do you think it was just kind of like a nod because everyone wanted that Link back, or what do you guys think about that?
What was it? Can you just refresh like the nod?
So in Twilight Princess, you encounter kind of a ghostly sort of old hero character, and in the timeline, it's Ocarina of Time Link when he gets old,
right,
appearing to the other Link in Twilight Princess. Okay. And it's not a big part. It's just like a very brief part of the game.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I mean, I'm thinking like I haven't got to that point in my replay or whatever, but I'm thinking about what I thought about that when I first played it is what I'm trying to remember. I honestly don't. I remember it, but I don't remember thinking about it. What about you?
I kind of consider that part 2 in Nintendo's effort to kind of explore consequences in Hyrule when Link isn't necessarily around. Round 1 was Wind Waker, when the hero didn't appear and all they could do was flood Hyrule to prevent Ganon from assuming power. There's a more subdued look at the aftermath in Twilight Princess through the hero's shade. I think we're seeing part 3 in the new Zelda, the idea that once again there has been an absence, which has resulted in a calamity that Link could not prevent. And now he's being dropped into a world after the catastrophe and made to pick up the pieces. So I don't really have a good answer for the question per se, but it does make me think of kind of the progression of that idea of aftermath and consequence that we've seen in subsequent entries in the series since Wind Waker.
I think what makes it hard too is it's really difficult to tell when talking about timeline stuff and talking about consequences and stuff. It's very difficult to tell what was highly planned and like what was like very scripted and what was
an afterthought.
What was an afterthought and what was just them answering questions because they knew fans wanted a timeline. There was all these theories about timelines. There was all these fan timelines. And, some people will say things like, well, they didn't even have a timeline. They just found a fan timeline they liked and they put that in the book and that made it canon.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I agree. A lot of the timeline stuff is afterthought. It's a nice idea to tie them together, but ultimately I think it's kind of nice to think about it in this way, but you wonder when it's going to get to the point where it's driving too much of the story.
Yeah.
So, like, Skyward Sword was, like, a pretty good about it by just, the ending kind of did a lot of timeline stuff. It wasn't all about the timeline, but you wonder if, like, this new one's going to have a lot to try and place it within that timeline.
Yeah, have they said? I haven't noticed. Have they said where it's supposed to fit timeline-wise?
Absolutely no idea. But,
well, I think they're trying to. I mean, they seem to be trying to keep a lot of it under wraps, so that's probably part of it.
The answer I want to kind of add to build on to this question about does it matter what came first? My answer is that it doesn't matter to me whatsoever what came first, what order things were assembled in, what was quote unquote an afterthought or not. I want to go back to the name of the franchise, The Legend of Zelda. A legend is an oral story. Something that is passed down. It's the assembly and reassembly of discrete elements in new but continuous ways to get the same ideas across, which is basically what The Legend of Zelda as a franchise is. It takes common elements and does new and interesting things with them. And if the story is just something that's kind of assembled along the way and glued together hodgepodge, that doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah.
Because the end result is what's interesting.
We've already kind of like touched in our discussion of our favorite Zeldas, and we could even go on about like other Zeldas. We liked it in the way that the sort of legend was iterated, and in that kind of context of the game, and within the certain like whether constraints they put on it, or there's always kind of like narrative constraints in a way. And sometimes that affects gameplay as well, and your experience of playing the game and experiencing how the legend is told, and then how that plays connected to the other games. I don't know. For a while, like I remember when Majora's Mask came out, and I was just growing up, and then like a few friends at the time were just like, "Well, what came after Majora's Mask? Was it Wind Waker?"
Wind Waker, yeah.
Yeah, and then we're all like, "Wait, what's the next? No, what happens to like what's after Majora's Mask?" Like we wanted immediately after, and it was just weird because most of the game.
Because at the end too, you just kind of are like, well, all right, it's another we live another day, and then you just kind of walk away. Yeah.
So it was a bit weird. That's when I remember expecting like a connection between the games, even though it was 90. Was it 96? When no 90.
98 for Ocarina. 2000 for Majora's Mask.
2000. Yeah. So I was between 8 and like 13 while like playing these games, give or take a few years, and so like at that time I was just like expecting. That's when I was expecting a storyline. But Super Nintendo ones didn't play them that much because, again, I was the uncool kid. And then also, like, and then Nintendo because I didn't play it. So, like, it wasn't until, like, Ocarina of Time that came out that it was expecting it. And that was when you hear more and more of, like, a demand of, like, where's the connection between the stories. But part of me doesn't care much because there's, other than Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, all other games kind of have a very distant gap.
Yeah.
I want to pick up on that just for a second. The idea that the attention towards the timeline started to coalesce around Ocarina of Time. I think parallel to the development of Ocarina of Time was the development of online Zelda fandom in general, where the internet got to the point where it was ubiquitous enough that people could come together and exchange thoughts, ask each other, hey, what's going on? I remember when I was about that age, exploring Ocarina of Time, having a grand old time, really just enjoying the game. I was also just kind of figuring out the internet at the same time. I was at that age where my parents were comfortable letting me just be on a computer. I swear, like, everything I had bookmarked at the time were just Zelda fan sites, full of fanfic, fan art, speculation, rumors. I swear I tried to find the Triforce at least 4 times. So I think it's not a coincidence, but it was a lining up of events that the franchise grew at the same time as the fan community, and they just played into each other right around that time.
Right.
I think also too, it's like it's a good point that you make about like legends and disconnection between the games. But at the same time, I think we can all agree that we like part of the reason why we like Majora's Mask so much and it's our favorite is because it's almost in direct communication with Ocarina in some way or another.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really smart way of kind of doing. It's not directly a sequel, but it sort of is. Without just explicitly calling it a sequel.
Well, you feel like in tone, or not, maybe not tone, but in aesthetic at the very least, it was just so easy as a kid, and obviously they came out so close together, it was so easy as a kid to see those aligned. And I think Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks and Wind Waker, you know, like they all have such close aesthetics that it's easy to see those aligned as well. Yeah.
Fun fact, Link's Awakening is considered a direct sequel to A Link to the Past. Canonically, it's the same Link. He saves Hyrule, defeats Ganon, and he goes off on a little boat searching for new experiences, new training, new growth. He gets shipwrecked, ends up on the Dream Island, and the game goes from there.
Right, yeah. Okay, that was actually, see, I asked, what's your favorite Zelda game and why? And that's what we got out of it. So this is what I mean. I feel like this was very productive despite being an overly simplified question.
Just as academics, we answer questions with statements and we just drag it on way too long.
Yeah, exactly. We can just do anything.
That's why we do podcasts so well.
So this actually leads me to another question that I didn't have written down, but now just seems obvious after we got so much of that, is what is your least favorite Zelda game and why?
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
I'm ready for this question. Okay,
oh, you
ready?
start then.
So my least favorite Zelda game is Skyward Sword. And I don't know if that's my particular experience with Skyward Sword, but I really didn't like it. And in talking with Emma, I think I may have missed a part of the game too.
Oh yeah, I forgot we had that conversation.
And I still haven't figured it out yet. Like I don't know if I actually got to do a lot of the side quests. I may have just missed it. But combined with the fact that I had a pirated pre-release copy of the game, which may have led to the technological difficulties I had with the Wii U motion control, which could have also been the place I set it up. I had a really hard time just playing the damn game. And I didn't think I had the Motion Plus. I remember that was a thing. And getting the controls down, I never managed to get the controls down. throughout the entire game. So like every time I fought Giraham, it was really difficult and frustrating, and I wasn't having a good time with that. Combined with the fact that I didn't particularly find the flying around to be very interesting, there wasn't a lot of things to see or exploration to do. The fact that you had to do the same three levels like 3 times, which none of those levels I found very interesting to begin with, or the characters, like the species on those levels, and then the final boss that you have to fight like 5 times.
Screw that guy.
Yeah, so like it was just a lot of expectation that just didn't get met for me, and I just felt like the game, despite like its connections to the timeline, like the ending cutscenes I thought were very interesting. But besides that, I found it to be very uninspired.
I should say, even though I don't think Skyward Sword is my least favorite Zelda game, I will say that the fighting that one boss multiple times, what was his name? The toe boss, where you had to smash his toes?
Black Fuzzy.
Imprisoned.
Yes, that's what I knew. It was like something memorable. Yeah, having to fight that like 4 times was my least favorite Zelda moment of all time. I don't think I've ever been so angry in a Zelda game as like the 3rd time I had to fight that, where I was just like, no,
because you're building up the entire time to some sort of final boss.
Yeah, and then you're just like, this shit again.
I'll also give a special nod to Phantom Hourglass in this category, but I only beat the first temple so I didn't complete the whole game because I knew you had to go back to the same temple, and I was just annoyed by that, so I just gave up. So that doesn't count because I didn't play it, so I don't know what it's actually like, but special nod.
Was annoying,
yeah.
It would have to maybe be Spirit Tracks.
Yeah.
Because I just did not... I was really annoyed with being stuck on a track.
Yeah.
And then just some of the stuff that they threw in to, like, make it difficult for you just to get from one spot to the area, like, the next. It's one thing where you could, like... You know where certain like people are, like, I don't know, say in like the open worlds where you could just like, oh, there's a group of monsters over there, I'll just like avoid them or like kill them. But some of the stuff in Spirit Tracks was just annoying when I had to like go anywhere because there would just be always those other trains that would.
It wasn't so much challenging as it was just. I don't like again. Maybe it's just repetitive. Like it was really repetitive
and annoying too. It's just
and
like,
very annoying. Yeah.
I liked Skyward Sword though. Like I don't know, and I thought the controls were really good compared to. I had Twilight Princess for the Wii. The swinging was annoying and very like not responsive.
I think just for both games, just I remember having like just the tired arm, just really like, and not in like a way where I felt like I was getting a workout or anything like that. Like in a way where I was like genuinely concerned about getting carpal tunnel or something.
But and then like I haven't played all of Zelda 2. And I don't know if that's fair to call it the least favorite.
Yeah, I have the same thing where I'm like, I'm not going to say Zelda 2, but at the same time, that is the only Zelda game I've never finished.
But at least that's like a good challenge.
Yeah,
that game is hard.
It is hard, but I think that's why I was just like, yep, no.
It's the Dark Souls of Zelda.
Chris?
No, I can make a Dark Souls joke. Let me, please.
Absolutely not. Forbidden. Off the table.
Cut it out.
Okay. Yeah, my least favorite Zelda game is Star Fox Adventures. Okay. All right.
Answer it for real, please.
All right. Okay, for real. I am wary of singling out any of the 3D post-hoc arena console Zelda games as a least favorite because I'm just wary of the fact that the reception of those games is so in flux, and they all follow what I think is kind of a similar trajectory, which is they come out and they get glowing reviews from the games press, several tens, all of them, guaranteed. That's just how it works with gaming journalism and Nintendo. We all buy them because we're fans, and we enjoy the shit out of them when they're new and shiny and impressing us and wonderful. Then we put them on the shelf, and then these games slowly attract a certain measure of scorn. And it's not quite the Sonic cycle in terms of hype versus disappointment versus plunge, but I think we're at a point with Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess in particular where these games are not as well remembered as they're going to be someday because we are still waiting for, in many ways, the next Ocarina, the game that wows us with the level of innovation that we've been waiting for so long. So I think back to Skyward Sword, and I think of how the sword controls were a little bit clumsy, but also new and fun and interesting and immersive. I think of how the Imprisoned was a tedious-ass boss fight that should not have happened the second, third, fourth, and fifth time in that game.
Don't forget the first.
The first was okay.
Can't forget the first. But then I think of Demise, the thing that actually was sealed. That is the best concluding boss fight in the entire franchise,
really
bar none for me. You kill a fucking god.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
The optional boss, the optional super hard boss in Dark Souls 3 is lifted wholesale from that boss fight. Yeah. So that was awesome. Twilight Princess as well gets criticized for being Ocarina Plus, Big Boy Ocarina, right?
Yeah.
But I'm completely okay with that. It takes a long-ass time to get into. I never want to see a ranch in Hyrule again, but the attention to characters in that game is a little bit uneven, but it's more developed than Ocarina. It's just a chance to expand the ideas that hardware constraints and development time constraints prevented Ocarina from fully fleshing out. Wow, I'm still on this answer, and I haven't actually answered.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're just making it hard for me to answer instead of answer.
Okay, all right.
You're carpet bombing everything.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Phil then, Spirit Tracks, because Phantom Hourglass was a disappointing game, and then they just fucking did it again. Phantom Hourglass was a tech demo. The criticisms that are now being leveled against Star Fox Zero, I think, hold true to a similar extent for Phantom Hourglass, because it was innovation for innovation's sake without necessarily improving the fundamentals of Zelda. And then Spirit Tracks did not even have the crutch of innovation. I didn't beat that one. That's the only one I never beat.
Yeah.
And I didn't even pick it up at all.
Yeah.
Because I was so disappointed from Phantom Hourglass that I didn't bother.
I mean, I agree with everything that has been said so far, basically. But I'm going to, despite what everything Chris just says, I'm going to say Twilight Princess.
Wow.
And this is at least partially because I recently have replayed a lot of Zelda games because you can buy them all on your DS for like $2 or whatever. So I went back and replayed, Ages and Seasons and Minish Cap and just like really kind of was like has really like restructured like what I thought about a lot of these games. I did not replay Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks because I didn't want to. But right now I'm replaying Twilight Princess and it's really hard for me. Like I'm actually actively trying to make myself like it as I've been playing it. And like there are little things that I've enjoyed here and there, but for the most part it's felt like a huge slog, which is a bit weird for me because like I remember enjoying it the first time but just not enjoying it as much. But now, like, playing the remastered one, just super not enjoying it. And I think one of the things that's really been sticking out to me as I've been playing it is I do think they do a pretty close, like, they have a lot of characters that they play a lot of it close attention to and stuff, but they're just not funny or interesting or smart. Like, I don't like any of them. Like, they could all die. Like, all of those kids, every single one of those kids, kill them all.
Oh my god.
Like, I just like,
whoa.
And I just like, it bothers me so much because I'm the person who's just literally like, I have to save the old lady and make sure the Goron gets a bed. And
those kids are annoying.
Fuck Hyrule, drop a moon on him.
Yeah, and
Oh
that's
my
the thing is like in Majora's Mask, like I love all those characters, like every single one of them. It matters to me that they're happy or whatever. But in Twilight Princess, guys have this thing where I'm like, I just don't give a shit about any of
Not
you.
even Midna?
No.
Really? Wow.
Midna's just annoying. And like I know
More
this
than
isn't
V?
like
Vi? The sword?
oh god, I know I found Midna more annoying.
Oh my
and I just
God.
feel like this is like a really like an uncommon opinion or whatever, but I think there's just something about like, a combination of like the pacing and the tone of Twilight Princess. Like I just also never like the aesthetics. And I think part of my reservation about the newest Zelda is like I like everything I hear about it, and then I look at it and I'm like, don't be like Twilight Princess. Please don't be like Twilight Princess.
Well, in the new one, everything isn't brown, so we're good
Yes,
so far.
that is a
Or
big
black,
upgrade.
Straight up black.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's weird because like I think back to my friends like when Wind Waker and Twilight Princess were coming out, like the people I was hanging around with, and I was like one of the few people who really loved Wind Waker. Like, everyone hated Wind Waker, right? I think it's different now. People will be like, no, Wind Waker's classic. But when it came out, people hated it. Mm-hmm. And then everyone was like really pumped about Twilight Princess because the way it looked. But I kind of hate the way it looked. Everyone's got a messed up face.
Mostly just
I
Link.
think people just liked it because it was not Wind Waker.
Yeah,
right?
I think that was part of it.
People responded to because it's a cartoonish thing. I don't know. Like
It's the Christopher Nolan era of grimdark obsession.
Christopher
thing.
Nolan.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying he coined all that, but I mean, as far as like people wanted like Majora's Mask style tone with like with the setting of Ocarina.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't like when people say Majora's Mask is dark, it's not literal.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And it's like it's dark but cutesy.
Yeah.
It's kind of cutesy, right? Not where's Twilight Princess. Nothing's cutesy. Those gross birds, they're just gross.
They are pretty, and they have I need to replay it again because I'm really shocked that you would say Twilight Princess over of Skyward Sword, but Skyward Sword was just like I cheered when it was over.
I was
like, thank God. It's
Skyward
over.
Sword was too long. Like I will give it that, but there were we talked about before, like the side. Like I really did like all the side quests in Skyward Sword a lot. There's this moment in Skyward Sword where you finally find a way to get to the top of the tallest mountain in town. And you jump off there and you land in a bird's nest, and in the bird's nest is a baby rattle. And then you gotta find the baby whose rattle it is. And like I remember doing that and stopping and literally being like, this is why I love Zelda games. That moment where I just jumped arbitrarily off a tall surface and landed in a bird's nest with a baby rattle.
Now, did you watch the tech demo for Call of the Wild? The new one. God, I'm gonna get crucified. Breath of the Wild, where you jump, you're standing on top of the pond, and then you jump in the water, and then the Korra comes out.
I don't think
like
I saw that one. Yeah.
I screamed. I was just like, yes, they're back. I was like, because they're so cute, right? Like that was my favorite part about Wind Waker was Mako and that like little dungeon that you do with him and how he jingles. And so that was like a similar moment where you're diving, you're jumping, and then it's just this nice little
surprises.
Yeah. So yeah, I recommend you watch that. Are we going to talk about the new one now?
Yeah, I was supposed to say, I feel like that's a good point to transition to the new one. So we've personally at the FPS offices talked a lot about the controversy around Link's gender and like the rumors for Link's gender and stuff like that. And I've personally also talked to a lot of people about this topic because it's something I'm really interested in and I want to write about. And it's the sort of thing where like everyone has an opinion, even if their opinion is, I don't care. I don't see why everyone cares so much. They still have an opinion. And so some people want a new Zelda game that stars Zelda. Some people want Link's next reincarnation to be a woman. Some want a game that's starring Linkle. Some people want a choice between male and female Link, like in Mass Effect. Some people want things to stay exactly the same. So I have like a lot of specific questions on this topic, but maybe everyone could just sort of talk about, do you have a preference? And if you do have a preference, why?
Originally, when you were asking this question, said that it would be cool to just have like a completely gender neutral Link, which is I think the closest that we're getting so far with this new one. And I think there's been interviews where they were striving for that kind of design, but again, it's still explicitly a him. I would really like to see a game with Zelda, and I would really like to see a reincarnation of Link as a woman. But like in the other podcast, I think we talked about this. I think that to do that, it would need to be this huge marketing push.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think also, like I said in the other podcast, they haven't done it with Doctor Who yet, and they haven't done it with James Bond yet, who, as Chris says, Link is basically James Bond fantasy style. It's just like, it's a depressing thing to think about. So it's just like, I wish ultimately that we could have a female Link, but I think I would still be happy if it was just like completely gender neutral. Yeah. That's my answer.
Yeah. Do you guys have any strong opinions either way?
I'm kind of astounded that Nintendo hasn't done it, not because I'm offended per se. I am offended by how they handled it. Come the fuck on, Nintendo.
Yeah, it wasn't so much that they didn't do it. It was their response was just super bad,
I watched a Jimquisition on it this morning where he basically came out and said, if you guys just had come out and said, yeah, we want to do a story about a boy, that would have been infinitely better than the way they handled that.
Yeah, play.
What astounds me about it, though, is that the stakes are so frigging low in Zelda to do that. Link is not a character.
Yeah.
Link is a literal blank slate. Yeah.
It would be so easy.
We don't know for sure if that's going to be dramatically different in the new Zelda, but I doubt that he's going to have voice acting of great substance. There are going to be interesting voice characters around him.
Although when they started the gameplay at E3, you just boom, start off right away, and he's got no shirt.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting because I was like, is that like a direct response to the fact that why people can't speculate about gender?
The point I want to make, though, is there's a whole lot less going on in Zelda compared to another franchise like the BioWare games, where there need to be as many considerations. And how would we approach a female character differently? Mm-hmm. How do we not fuck it up? right?
Yeah.
There's a lot less to fuck up with Linkle, for example. I'm sure they would fuck it up,
Yeah.
but
No.
it's an adventure.
Yeah.
Nothing happens to the character on an interpersonal level except maybe a bit of light flirting with the princess at the beginning and at the end of the story. In between, it's a straight-up non-gendered adventure.
Yeah. Exactly.
It would make no difference. So I don't see why they need to make up excuses.
Well, you know it's bad when the South Park game has female character.
Yeah.
I just read that today. I'm like, oh my god, that's pretty bad.
Because we kind of breezed past it there, I just wanted to say that when we were talking about like their response to the questions about there being a female Link, I have the exact quote here where they said, "If we made Link a female, we thought that would mess with the balance of the Triforce. That's why we decided not to do it." I think that was that's why we decided not to do it, was like the hardest part for me to swallow. I'm like, that's why? I thought they were going to say part of it was why. And there's also that amazing like meme going around, if you guys have seen it, that's like things Link can be: a child, a teenager, blonde-haired, brown-haired, pink-haired, split into 4 color-coded versions of himself, partners with 2 other seemingly identical but also color-coded Links, a train conductor, a rabbit, a wolf, a plant thing, a fish man, a rock man, a god, an Octrok, a moblin, a like, a ghost inhabiting a suit of armor, the teacher's future incarnation, blah, 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 blah. Partners with alternate timeline wolf version of himself. Things Link can never be because it would destroy the whole character, nay, the franchise. A woman. And it's just like, it kind of sums it up. It's clearly not the reason why.
Well, and the what would Link do question or whatever is stupid.
Or,
Because
what would Link do if Zelda was the
because
protagonist?
they already had like one of the best games in the Zelda series that we can't even mention because it's so good, which is the CDI game. So Link was captured in that version, so he's already done it. And the Triforce battle, it was all balanced. It was okay. We made it. We got millions of YouTube videos from it. You know, like it was fine. Just saying.
Yeah, the actual quote, and to put that into context, the actual quote on that was, quote, "If we have Princess Zelda as the main character, who fights? What is Link going to do?" So that was, it was kind of shutting down both sides of it.
Yeah.
I think their enlightened level of progressivism at Nintendo EAD1 is displayed most prominently by the fact that throughout the franchise, Zelda has never raised a sword, but in Twilight Princess, she dropped one.
Just like Nintendo has dropped the ball. Oh. You can cut that out. I got no laughs out of that.
I think it's interesting because, like, in a lot of there's been a lot of coverage of these statements and of the new game, and I think one of the things that's interesting, kind of in line with what Chris is saying, is a lot of people are calling it a gender swap. Like, oh, people want to do gendered swap Link, but it's like that's making it sound a lot more complicated than it actually is, because like Chris said, it's not a developed character. That's why people can do Zelda mods where they just switch the pronouns and they they show them to their kids, and their kids have no idea that Link's supposed to be a boy, because other than those pronouns in most of the games, there's nothing indicating that gender. But I think, like I was mentioning about the shirtless Link, like that's probably going to change as we can render things, more complicated things. I think sort of the androgyny is going to go down, but at the same time, people did watch the trailers for this new Zelda and instantly were like, oh my god, Link's a girl.
That gives me another point I want to build off of just very quickly. You were talking about androgyny going down. That's exactly what's been happening with Sheik for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Introduced as this androgynous character, we have no idea who they are, what's going on, and has been increasingly more feminized in character designs throughout appearances in other games, other franchises. It seems like Nintendo accidentally stumbled upon what was actually kind of a really cool idea in 1998, and as internet culture has grown into the thing it is, and Nintendo has been counting their coppers, and there have been fewer and fewer coppers every year, and they are increasingly worried about alienating their player base. They're like, okay, yeah, let's play a little safe. Okay, yeah, Sheik's a girl. Okay, a girl, capital G girl.
Yeah, like
Link's
you
a
look
boy.
at pictures of Sheik in Ocarina of Time, and then you look at the Sheik amiibo that they put out like last year or whatever, and you're just like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like, if this new Link was in Ocarina of Time, gender could have been questioned because like the old Sheik and this new Link have a very similar physique, I think.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that's a good point.
They were able to present this somewhat male-coded body, and again, I always go back to like the concept art in Ocarina of Time, where it's very similar physique, but it was ultimately a woman in the end. But like they can't do that now. Like it's bizarre actually that it's like moving backwards.
Well, and can do it now to such an extent that they like introduced Linkle as this like female Link character or whatever, where it's just the introduction of Linkle was actually the first thing that ever made me not want them to make a Zelda game with a female protagonist, because I was just imagining all the like highly super gendered stereotypical crap they were going to put on that character instead of just having it be the like Link from any other game but a girl.
And if like it just Nintendo, when they're taking female protagonists across all their series, have kind of fucked up in a way. Like look at Metroid 2. Not Metroid 2, Metroid Other M. And I can't believe I did that twice. Or like Super Princess Peach.
Yeah, that was a disaster.
Oh God.
Like
that's the thing. Yeah, Super Princess Peach is another thing that makes me not want them to make a Zelda game starring Zelda, because I'm just, what if it's like that? That was a disaster.
Yeah, or you just have to like pray all the time till you get your light arrow at the end. I don't know. That's probably what you do. You just pray. Go to each temple and pray, and then you'll get the light arrow at the end that you may hit Ganondorf with or whatever. Maybe you'll win. Maybe Link will come and clean up.
I think the thing is, too, is that I've also gotten to this point where, like, I used to be, like, really advocating for it, and then I got to this point that I realized that, like, even if they did do a female Link, they would also do, like, a Prince Zelda. And if that happened, I would lose, like, the main thing that I actually wanted of a female Link, which is a, like, queer female Link, because I think in the back of my head when I'm playing Zelda, that's always who I'm playing. Because I'm just like imagining I'm just actually like girl Link, and I always change my name to Hero. And yeah, so like I know for a fact that they would definitely make it, they would have to make it a Prince Zelda. There's no way that they would do a queer relationship, or even I don't even think they would do a heavily coded friendship. Like I think that would be too potentially queer for them.
Well, and they even struggle with a heterosexual relationship, really.
Yeah, they can't even really depict that.
It's easy to like connect the dots, but they're not even being explicit with that. So
all right, well, what if we move on from the gender stuff? What other stuff? Like, how are you guys feeling about the new game? What are you excited about?
The first thing that I was really excited about is the lack of music and the very minimalistic sound design that's with the game. And I didn't notice this until they mentioned it in the gameplay videos, but there's no battle music. And there's no like overture or anything like the Zelda theme, and I actually really liked that, and I think that I hope to see more of that actually, because one, I thought I'm going to be very relaxed when I play this game. I'm not going to be stressed of like enemies coming at you. I can just explore and listen to like birds chirping and wind, and that's really appealing to me as someone who wants to just like come home and play games and relax sometimes.
Yeah.
I think that I'm not too crazy about the cooking or the crafting, because I feel like there's a lot of other games that do that, and I don't know if it's Minecraft or too much of that or too much of Skyrim. Like I never care about that in any game, so I don't think that they're going to make me care about it in this one. But just like the minimalistic sound design, I know it sounds like really maybe dumb, like because it's Zelda and who cares about sound in Zelda too much.
But no, if that's what got you pumped, that's what got you pumped.
It got me really excited. I was like, I'm going to relax and play this game, and I'm not going to feel pressured to have to like go here, go there.
Yeah, you can actually just sort of wander and explore.
Yeah.
I'm scared about that. I don't know. Like I'm like at the same time, like I was really excited when I saw this game, but then I just like the more I find I'm the least excited of everyone I talk to. And
okay, because that's actually also how I feel. So you and I might be on the same
Okay.
page. Is that like I just have deep reservations about open world Zelda. Full stop.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's just finding out like how big this game is going to be. Like it's at the same time really cool, but at like I don't know. Like I'm just scared of how they will pull it off, and if it will be like too much of.
Like, what if it's giant and empty? I think that's one of the things I keep thinking. Like,
Yeah, and you talked about how like Twilight Princess was a slog to get through.
Yeah.
And like I'm sure there's going to be ways to quickly get through the game.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. I'm scared that's going to be the same thing, that there's going to be so much that it might be too much. Could like in a way like be alright, but like I just really like brief games because I can just never finish a long game. And so like is something that's like nice and contained is what appeals to me. But then like stuff like the cooking and crafting, like kind of like what Alex was saying, was just like it was something that was always on my mind while playing all the Zelda games since like Ocarina of Time, and like because Zelda in a way like kind of paved the path for a couple of like action RPGs. And then so like at a certain point I remember like wondering like when are they going to put like stats on some items, like are they still going to stick with like a red like tunic and like green like
like blue upgrades, but like not, or like silver, gold.
It's like been the same for like each game, so it just seems so late at this point. It's so late that's like I'm fine with just a red tunic and a blue tunic at this point. Like I know that they're really amping to be like make this game stand out and different, and I think that some of the excitement is that it's going to be the next Ocarina, because it's like that again. You get to explore as much as Hyrule as possible, which back when the N64 came out and Ocarina of Time, it's like that was appeal for me. It was like
for me
world
too,
was huge, and like
and there was so much going on.
There's so much going on,
There's infinite holes. Oh, another hole, another hole, another hole. So many holes.
So yeah, I don't know. Like I'm excited, but also like not like the least excited about it because of this open world.
It doesn't help they didn't show any towns. You think they would have showed a town without spoilers?
Yeah, that's
They
kind of
could
like
have done
that was the main thing that I was gonna say, is that I feel like the thing that would have got me excited was just meeting any characters or seeing any towns or anything like that. And I was watching the stream at one point where they straight out said they were purposely not showing any characters or towns because it would be way too many spoilers. It's really interesting. It's like a really leading thing to say because, you know, at one point in the stream they encountered one character and I was like, oh my God, who is this old guy? Like I was like really excited about it and stuff. And they literally just like click past all his dialogue as quickly as possible. And we're just like, we're not paying attention to that. Let's go get this chest. And I was like,
And the interviewer asked, who is that? And he's like, I'm not going to.
Yeah, I can't say or whatever. And so I think that's the thing where it's hard to, I'm having a really hard time mustering up excitement because they're focusing so much on like the open world gameplay instead of the things that I care about in Zelda. Like what characters are going to be in this? How does this fit into the timeline? Like how does this fit into the legend?
I have a slightly positive and then a largely negative thought about what we've seen so far of this Zelda. The slightly positive thing is the smug feeling that Nintendo has finally delivered on their eternal threat to make a different Zelda. I mean, I feel like they've trotted this promise out at least 3 times before. Like Skyward Sword, they're like, this one's going to be different, guys. We promise.
Yeah,
and literally, all they did was take out the links between the different parts of the environment and make you backtrack. Oh, and there were waggle controls. And then, what was the other one? A Link Between Worlds. They're like, yeah, this one is going to be really different this time, guys. And the only difference was you had to buy your items, and if you kind of sort of felt like it, you could pick the dungeon order. This one's going to be different. There is no doubt in my mind that this one is going to be different
it has to be
experience. It may be a barely recognizable Zelda experience, and that could be good. My negative thought about all this is that this game, for me, is emblematic of Nintendo in struggle. Nintendo confronting its own mounting irrelevance and obsoleteness. And there's a few reasons I have for that. One is you've got the same people, basically the same people who have been making Zelda for decades, trying to innovate upon their own work, trying so hard to make something that's different and new and fresh and appealing. And then you look at games that came out 10, 15 years ago. You look at Shadow of the Colossus. You look at Dark Souls. You look at Journey. You look at different games that have taken little aspects of what Zelda is and was. And because it's different people with different takes, they have innovated in ways that these people cannot, simply because they are different people with different priorities and different ideas. The other problem I see there is the fact that as hardware improves, as graphics get better, as the games industry grows, budgets soar, we've been talking for years about kind of the death of AAA and how indie games ascendant are kind of the new thing, right? They're not the new thing anymore. They're the new old thing now, right? I think that's finally starting to catch up to Nintendo. They're putting literally everything they have into this one game. It's the only thing they brought out at E3. It was still the best fucking game on the floor, and I'm really pissed off that Nintendo can get away with bullshit like that. Like, literally just skip E3, like, fuck you, and then just drop the best game on the show floor anyway. That's hilarious, but it's all they're doing. The last big game they put out was, what, Super Mario 3D World 2013, something like that? they've whittled themselves down to Mario and Zelda. All their other franchises are still in their wheelhouse, but they're all being farmed out to co-developers, third parties.
Yeah.
Platinum Games, Retro Studios, Team Ninja. Other people are making Nintendo games now because they've stretched themselves too thin.
Well, and they even announced today with this one that they're bringing on co-developers, right?
Yeah, exactly. They can't make a whole game themselves anymore because they haven't figured out a way to inject enough fresh blood into themselves, expand themselves as a company, explore other platforms. They are dying. And this might be the best Zelda game that ever comes out, but I also worry that it will be the last.
So you're perceiving it as a death rattle?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I do think that, like, just to really hit home on something that has come up on a lot of our podcasts, I think that there is sort of a weird cultural assumption that has been holding true for a while and is slowly dying out, which is that bigger is better, longer is better, newer is better. You know, like these sorts of things. And, you know, like how many hours can you pack into this game? How much gameplay do I get? You know, when we were on the Firewatch podcast, we were talking about how people were complaining that, like, it wasn't worth the money because it wasn't long enough or whatever. It wasn't big enough. And like, I just don't believe into that. I don't buy into that mentality at all. Like, the length of a game does not indicate its quality or anything like that. And neither does the openness or the size of it. And, like, I think that's, like, a bit of nervousness with this new Zelda. It's just like, okay, open world Zelda could potentially be the best thing ever. Or it could just be them attempting to be like, well, this is what people want. They want the longest game. They want the biggest game. And that kept being what they were, like, really throwing out at E3, was just like, it's so big. It's so long. It's different every time you try it.
Yeah.
It's like
they even were like, we can't even show you all of this small section of the map in these 3 days that we're here or whatever. You'll never be able to see it all, they said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, games are technically getting shorter.
Yeah.
We were just talking about Deus Ex today because we have to mention that. That's a 40-hour game. When's the last time they're going to make a 40-hour game? No. Instead of making a 40-hour game with dialogue and levels, just have this big one.
Yeah.
And just let them wander around. And, you know, we don't have to add anything except plop a few chests here and there and goblins, and then you're good. And it's so maybe in that way it's also economic.
Well, I think we covered a lot in that time period. I want to thank you guys for coming, and thanks for playing my trivia game.
Yeah,
and
it's fun.
and that's it.
You're still creepy.
Thank you for listening to the First Person Podcast. We would like to thank Neil Randall and the staff of the Games Institute for their support, as well as Elise Vist, our podcast producer. We would also like to thank Stephen Trothan, who wrote and composed our theme music.